Live from the People Forward Network podcast studio at CultureCon in Madison, Wisconsin, this Fringe episode was created to help you grow your perspective around culture and meaningful work. CultureCon believes that every individual, regardless of role, has the power to make work more meaningful for themselves and their organization. Now, here's some inspiration straight from the amazing leaders and workplaces within the CultureCon community.
Amy Bayer, welcome to the People Forward Network studio. Good to have you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so excited to have a conversation with you. I was fortunate enough to be able to attend your presentation, so I'd love to just share some of the big points with our podcast audience. I would love for you to start with your title of the topic, Everyone Owns Culture. Talk to us a little bit about that. Why that title? What kind of stirred you to move in that direction, and why you think it's really important?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a career over 20 years in human resources, worked at a couple different companies. And so, one of the great things is you learn a lot. You see places that maybe you don't want to work at or cultures that you don't want to be a part of. And you also see cultures that are really great. And you get a lot of learnings, over the years. And I kind of think everything that I have in my role right now is stuff that I've just learned over the last 20 years. And one of the things that has been probably one of my biggest learnings is that when it stays just in HR, it will fall flat. And I know, as a person who's worked in HR for 20 years, that might be a little off-putting to some, but you got to get it out of HR. Yeah. You got to get others engaged. Obviously, everybody owns culture. When I mean that, I mean from the board all the way to the lowest level of employees. And everybody is responsible to shape that culture. I really see it as a shared responsibility. It's not, you actively participate and can make things better. And you know what? Sometimes, too, the culture isn't for somebody. And I think that also, when you have that mentality that everybody owns it, if it isn't a culture that works for you, it's also okay then to go and find a culture that does. And so I think that that's something that's really important, because you really do need everybody being consistent and aligned and moving in the same direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love some of the things. I know you mentioned that you are HR geek, which I thought was fun too.
Right. I said if I'm a culture geek, I'm really an HR geek. I mentioned that senior year in high school, I saw a panel discussion and someone was working in HR, and that was back in 1990. So those jobs weren't out there, and I was like, that is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so it's been really great to be a part of Human Resources Nerd Group.
Yes. I learned something else in the presentation that we share in common.
Oh.
That our first day at our last jobs were March 9th, 2020.
Oh, so that was your last day at a job?
My first day.
Oh, your first day.
Yes.
So we do have that in common.
Yes.
I did see you laugh. And so that was a really intense time to start a new job.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, I was supposed to be in person, on site, and an office. And then I was supposed to spend 1 week out of the month in Missouri. So I'm surprised that I even signed up for that job. But I think back then at the time in 2020, that probably would have been what we did,
Yeah.
And then March 16th, I've actually worked remotely since then. Being in HR, you've always were in the office.
Yeah.
And so I had to build a whole new skill set of kind of tools, a whole new tool chest now that I was going to be in that virtual work environment. Was it similar for you?
Yeah, I was flying to work, and so I was not at home, and that was just supposed to be my rhythm. Yeah. And I got on a train, happened to be on a train that day, and didn't go back for a long time and became virtual. But yeah, when you said that, I was like, oh my goodness, we share that special day.
And I don't ever forget it. How about you?
Yeah, no, I remember.
March 9th and March 16th when we all started working virtually, and we're like, okay, let's just try this thing.
Yeah.
And we've never looked back as a company.
Yeah.
And actually, it really, I think, we know, people want to work for a virtual company. So it opened up to us all the people that we could hire. Mm-hmm. And so we got so many more talented people that could come work for us. And so it was really an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, because the location no longer was a barrier.
Right.
Yeah.
And then all the programs that I started, we didn't know doing any of them in person. So I actually think the fact that when I started my role, we were virtual and that's all we knew, it hasn't been a barrier for us, where you hear sometimes virtual workplaces can't be very vibrant. We've never struggled with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great. One of the things I loved that you talked about too was the state of culture.
Yeah.
When you entered it at that point in time. So I'd love for you to reflect on that and then how that has propelled you into the role that you are in now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we at Duck Creek, so this was happening before I got there, I heard that they never had a really strong in-person work culture, but they were really forcing it, and it was like that kind of thought, well, we'll offer pizza and that'll make people come. We've got a cool foosball table. Why wouldn't they come? We've got some great core values. They're right up on the wall. Everybody's just going to want to come to the office. And so us, becoming virtual kind of took all that away. And I think what we heard from our employees loud and clear is like, those things aren't going to bring us back into an office. And we need other ways to engage us and really kind of have the culture that we want where we have really great work-life balance. So, that's a little bit about us. And I kind of, in the middle as I'm talking to you, I lost part of the question.
No, but you talked about where Duck Creek was on March 9th, 2020 in terms of culture, and then how that has created some opportunities for where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Role.
At the time, the current HR team, they had different priorities. We were really focused on going public. DE&I wasn't one of them. Mm-hmm. We were hearing things from employees like, we're not seeing representation. We're not seeing the diversity that we want to see. We don't have employee resource groups. But that wasn't anything. There was nothing in place. And then, June 2020, post George Floyd, our employees weren't having it. And they were actively telling us, we want more. And we need to see diversity. We need to see women in leadership. We want employee resource groups. And I also shared, too, independently of that, there were just 2 employees, and so courageous, right? That in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of just moving to a virtual workforce, they were like, you know what? We are going to own this culture, and we're going to step up, and we're going to start a women's resource group. And I think that was so powerful to see. And I was a part of that group, not in the position that I'm in, but to see, like, again, employees just living into that and shaping the culture and saying, like, hey, this is what we want, and we're gonna drive it forward.
Yeah. I love that example because it shows the power of the bottoms up.
Yes.
That culture formation is not just tops down.
Yeah.
And that you don't have to just wait for somebody to do it for you.
Yes.
And I think that's the power of what you're inviting us to when you say that everyone owns culture, that we get to get engaged in the conversation and put some action behind that passion that we have to make a difference. And so I think that the forming of the Women's ERG is such a great example of that.
Yes, absolutely. It is. And it's I've also seen too, the effects of that empowerment and to watch people transform. Mm-hmm. So one of the persons that, Sage is her name, that started that women's resource group, she was in a totally different role, didn't like to public speak. She now is on my team. Mm-hmm. She leads all of our ERGs. Mm-hmm. She is out there and she stretches herself at all time. But to see that, of having employees own it, drive it, bring it forward, the impact it can make on careers is really incredible.
That is so powerful what you just said, right? Like you took one step to co-lead something new, and then it turned into a new career path.
100%. And I've seen this, though, with other employees. So it's not just a singular thing.
Yeah.
Or I've seen people who then that gave them that chance to work on leadership skills in a safer space. And then they can show like, hey, I've done this. I've led this group.
Yeah.
And it really kind of builds that confidence and that courage. And it's really powerful to be a part of it.
Yeah. I love that too, because it also, for people, to your point, that may not manage people in their role, but they know that that's an important skill for them in terms of developing to the next level. It's another way to be able to demonstrate that skill as well. But I love that that's such the output of what has happened too, is that it's not just one person, but multiple people, things of that have happened in that kind of example. Any other examples of things that you want to share in terms of the Everyone Owns culture? Any other great stories that you'd love to share to inspire our audience?
Yeah, no, when I think about our culture ambassador program, I knew what was important was to get out to people who are applying to Duck Creek, right? It's a competitive market to get talent, because your background in recruitment. And I'm like, what is our competitive advantage? It's our culture. And I need to get someone talking with them right away about that. But I also find that people are interviewing us, right? They have lots of places to work for. And so I find a good culture is not a nice to have anymore, as we talked about. It's a need to have. And people will say, I'm not working there if I don't see employee resource groups, different councils, like different activities happening. So we formed our Culture Ambassador program. Candidates get a chance, they pick who they want to speak to. So let's say that they wanted to speak to someone from the Women's Resource Group. They pick one of those talent profiles and they meet with them and they can ask them questions directly. With the Culture Ambassadors, we've spent a lot of time in investing in them because we know we're putting you in front of prospective employees. So we want to develop their skills. And I always say, like, anything that we're going to do to develop their skills is just developing the leaders at Duck Creek. This group loves doing these interviews. And they told us, again, here's our employees telling us again, we want to do more. So our culture ambassadors, like, I'm open to do more. I want to do more. How can I get more involved? One of them in particular, same kind of thing. She came as a new employee and she was more quiet, a little bit more reserved. And I've watched her grow so much. And she loves doing these programs. And she and others were like, okay, when new employees come in, I don't want them to feel like I did. I want them to have a connection. I want them to maybe feel like they belong. We'd like to make sure that we have a program after they join. So our culture ambassadors now, we're starting to work on it this year. It's called a New Employee Connect. They have the culture conversation. They get hired. We're going to now have events throughout the year, totally employee-led and driven, and ways it could be different. We're kind of working out what the programming is going to be like. But that came from them telling us, like, hey, I think we can do better, and I want to be a part of that, and I want to make a difference in this employee. And it's just going to be other ways for, people to network and connect and meet each other, because we have to be more intentional since we're virtual.
Yeah. I love the Culture Ambassador program. Like, in my head, I'm adding that to my toolkit of ways to create and cultivate culture in the places that I'm at. And I love that they started out as recruitment help, and now they're also about onboarding and being ambassadors inside the organization, not just to external candidates. Is there any other thing you'd like to share with people just to inspire them to even think about them being a part of owning their culture too?
Oh, yeah.
Any word of advice?
That's a great culture. I was thinking of it in a different way. The power that comes from being tapped by somebody, because I always like to kind of tap into the culture carriers. I always find, I think I shared, you might have heard this, like I follow the people. I find my early adopters and then I try to really tap into them. And that feels so powerful, though, to have someone to reach out to you and get you engaged. We talk about, right, that you feel valued, you feel seen and heard. But I think also I love this quote by Brene Brown, and it makes me think of this. You can either choose comfort or courage, but you can't have both. And so for those people who are like, hey, I want more, I want to do more, I want a workplace that's maybe I want to actively participate, I'm going to tell them to choose courage, raise their hand, and, start being, really vocal about the things they want and see where they can partner within their company and get some, different programs in place.
I think that's a great way to end it. I just want to say thank you for all of the work that you're doing, how you transform Duck Creek, and even then being able to share your light here to continue to inspire all of us. So thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. It was very nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.